Hey everyone, ready to tackle the biggest question out there. What's the meaning of life? We're diving deep today, folks. We've got ancient texts, modern science, the whole shebang.
It's a journey, isn't it? A journey humans have been on for, well, pretty much forever. And the best part is, it never really ends.
Right. And we're not afraid to get our hands dirty. We're talking to deep dive those mind-blowing ideas
Mhm.
about why we're here and what it all means. No stone unturned.
Absolutely. We're looking at this through all sorts of lenses: philosophy, religion, history, even a little neuroscience just for kicks.
Okay, so buckle up. Let's rewind way back to ancient Egypt.
All
Or
right.
think about a society where death wasn't the end, but like the headliner, the main event.
Wild, right? But for them, it was all about transition, not an ending. Mummies, pyramids, all that jazz. They really believed in the soul's immortality and prepping for the afterlife. Makes you think about how they lived day to day, knowing their actions had, you know, eternal consequences.
Okay, that's a heavy thought. And the journey of the soul. They were obsessed. And speaking of soul journeys, cue the ancient Greece music. It's Plato time.
Ah, Plato, the OG of deep thoughts. He was convinced the soul was eternal, separate from, all this physical stuff, the body, just a temporary ride. He believed your true self on this epic journey in this life. Just a quick pit stop.
Woo! Talk about a reality check. Our modern world's obsessed with stuff, right? Makes you think. But how do we get from soul journeys to, well, how we see life and death now?
Now that's the million-dollar question. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, things shift big time. Monotheistic religions like Christianity rise up. Suddenly, it's less about the afterlife itself and more about getting into the pearly gates salvation. Faith in divine grace, that's the ticket.
So it's not so much about what happens after, but how you live now to get the VIP pass. That's a
Yeah.
huge change.
Huge. And this whole personal relationship with God becomes the meaning of life for centuries. But, like everything, it evolves. Jump ahead to the Renaissance, humanism pops back up. Think reason, observation, enjoying life right now.
It's like ancient Greece is back in style, living your best life in the here and now. But that leads us to some pretty deep questions, the kind we still ask today. Existential stuff.
Totally. That focus on human experience sets the stage for existentialism. This whole idea that we create meaning in a world where it might not actually exist. On its own, I mean.
Hold up, no inherent meaning. Okay, my brain just went into overdrive. So,
Yeah.
like, we're making it up as we go. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. But it's not as bleak as it sounds. Think of it like an amazing opportunity. This guy, Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist, he found so much power in this idea.
Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
Didn't he survive the Holocaust? And then found meaning. Okay, you have my attention. Tell me more.
So, Frankl's experience in the camps, it led him to this huge realization. Even in the worst possible situations, humans have this deep need to find meaning. And from that experience, he came up with this type of therapy. Logotherapy, he called it, all about finding meaning, even when things are rough.
Logotherapy. Okay, I'm all ears. Break it down for me.
Basically, it's pretty straightforward. Frankl realized we can't always choose what happens to us, right? But we can choose how we react, how we think about it. Finding meaning even when things are really, really tough. That's the heart of logotherapy. And the cool thing is, we can all try that, no matter what we're going through.
Wow, that hit home. It's a good reminder that even when everything feels out of control, we still have choices. It's like you're saying meaning isn't something you find out there. It's something you got to build inside yourself.
Nailed it. It's a whole new way of looking at things.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay, but we've talked about finding meaning in our own lives, but where do we even fit in the grand scheme of things, right? Which brings us to another biggie. Where do we come from?
Right. Talk about a question for the ages. And there's some pretty wild theories out there. So on the one hand, you've got evolution, natural selection, survival of the fittest, the whole 9 yards. Millions of years in the making, and we're here to, well, survive and pass it on.
So we're just part of this giant machine driven by instinct. It feels like there should be more to the story, you know?
And that's where things get interesting. Because then you have existentialism and it flips the script. Existentialists would say, yeah, we have biological past, sure, but what we are, our meaning, that's not in our genes or some master plan. We make it ourselves through the choices we make, the stuff we do every single day.
Yeah, that changes things, doesn't it? If there's no set script, we become the writers. Empowering and kind of scary at the same time.
Totally. The freedom to choose your own path, your own values, it can be a lot.
No kidding. Which takes us to the other side of that coin. Where are we going? Is this all there is? What happens after the curtains close?
Now we're getting to the heart of it. This is where things get really personal beliefs. interpretations. Religion gives a lot of people comfort, this idea of something more, heaven, hell, reincarnation. These are all ways of picturing something after this life.
Like in Islam, Judgment Day is a really big deal. You're judged on your deeds in this life.
Yeah.
It's a powerful motivator for living right.
Totally. Then you've got Hinduism and Buddhism, totally different vibe. Reincarnation. It's not a straight line, it's a circle: life, death, rebirth, over and over again. And karma, what you do now, affects your next life. So every choice matters.
It's wild how different religions have such different ideas about the afterlife, but they all tap into this human need for, I don't know, something more. But what about folks who look to science? What's
Wow.
their take on the big, where are we going question?
Well, if you're sticking to the hard science, death is usually seen as the end. Consciousness stops, the body shuts down, and that's pretty much it for us as we know it.
I got to admit, that doesn't sound as fun as heaven or, coming back as an eagle or something. But come on, science is always making these crazy discoveries. There's got to be more to the story.
Oh, there totally could be. We're always learning, right?
Okay, like what kind of stuff has scientists scratching their heads about consciousness after death? Give me the good stuff.
All right, so near-death experiences, NDEs, the whole seeing the light thing, people feeling peace, or even seeing loved ones who've passed on. For a long time, doctors were like, yep, that's just the brain doing weird stuff when you're close to death. But these days, more and more researchers are taking a second look.
No way. So there might be a real scientific explanation for those stories.
Maybe. It's tricky. Some scientists say it's all in our heads, the brain freaking out because it's not getting enough oxygen. But then others are like, wait a minute. These stories are so similar, even across different cultures. And some people remember stuff that they couldn't possibly know unless there's something more going on.
So maybe consciousness is way more complicated than we thought. It's like science is catching up to some of these ancient ideas about the soul, a spiritual world beyond what we can see.
Right. And the craziest part is we're just starting to figure out consciousness. It could be that our brains are more like receivers tuned into something bigger than just us.
Dude, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that's true. Consciousness sticks around. How should we live our lives knowing that? Does it change how we see right and wrong, our purpose, the whole meaning of life thing? This is a lot to unpack. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like, well, it's a lot to take in. Like we've got this cosmic puzzle, but half the pieces are missing. So let's say we do have a say in how we live. Where do we even start?
Right. So many options, so many different takes on life's big questions. But hey, maybe that's part of the fun. We get to explore, right? Figure out what clicks for us.
So it's less about finding the right answer and more about finding what feels right. I like that.
You got it. And there are tons of paths to try. Like Stoicism, for example. It's ancient, but it's making a comeback these days.
Stoicism. Virtue, reason. Sounds a little intense.
Maybe at first, but it's super practical, actually. The Stoics were all about focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, and letting go of the rest.
So not sweating the small stuff. Being a good person, making good choices. Sounds pretty useful in this crazy world.
Exactly. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, total nightmare, right? A Stoic wouldn't waste energy getting angry. They'd use that time to practice mindfulness or...
Listen to a podcast. See? We're on the right track already.
Exactly. Or just find a moment of peace, even when things are annoying. Finding the good in every situation, even the bad ones.
Okay, some days I could definitely use a little stoicism in my life. But what about those folks who find meaning in, creating their own values, their own purpose? Isn't that where existentialism comes in?
You know it. Existentialism takes that Stoic acceptance and says, it applies to everything. It's realizing you have the freedom to decide what's important to you, even if the world seems kind of crazy and meaningless sometimes.
Freedom. And the responsibility that comes with it. It's like standing at the edge of everything, knowing you get to choose your own path. Exciting and scary all at once.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That feeling of freedom, knowing your choices matter. But it's not all about us, right? Some philosophies, like utilitarianism, say it's about the bigger picture.
Right. Thinking about other people, society as a whole, not just our own little bubble.
Exactly. Utilitarianism says the best choice is the one that brings the most happiness to the most people, even if it means making sacrifices.
Makes sense. Okay, but we can't talk about the meaning of life without mentioning religion, right? It gives billions of people this whole framework for understanding their place in the universe, their purpose.
For sure. And even though different religions have different ideas, they actually agree on a lot more than you might think. Take Christianity. It's all about faith, love, compassion, this idea that our lives have meaning beyond just, existing.
And then there's Buddhism. Totally
Right.
a different approach. Letting go of material things, finding enlightenment through meditation, and being kind to others. The goal, breaking free from suffering, finding real peace and freedom.
And don't forget about Hinduism. So much ancient wisdom there. Dharma, doing what's right, playing your part. And karma, your actions have consequences in this life and the next. It's all connected.
It really is amazing. These different traditions with all their different rituals and beliefs, they share so many of the same values. Compassion, purpose, feeling connected to something bigger. Maybe deep down, we're all searching for the same thing.
Something to think about, isn't it? Which brings us back to that ultimate mystery. What happens when we die? Humans have been asking that question forever.
The ultimate unknown. We talked about heaven, reincarnation,
Oh.
and even with all our fancy science, we still don't have a clear answer.
Maybe that's the point. Maybe that mystery, that search for answers is what keeps us going. It's what pushes us to learn and grow, to question everything.
So you're saying the journey trying to figure out life big questions is more important than actually having the answers.
It's a thought, right? What if life, with all its ups and downs, is about learning and growing, expanding our minds beyond what we think we know?
Wow. Well, folks, there you have it. A quick tour through humanity's never-ending quest to find the meaning of life. We may not have any easy answers, but hopefully we've given you something to chew on, some fresh perspectives for your own journey.
The most important thing, don't ever stop asking those big questions. Stay curious and embrace the mystery.
Couldn't agree more. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but we'll keep exploring these big questions. Until next time, everyone.